Welcome to Foxhole Symphony, a podcast about the transformational value of men in authentic community.
In our Foxhole, men are equipped to build relationships that foster belonging, accountability, and growth.
Stop believing the lie that you can thrive in isolation and instead
join us on the journey from broken to whole. Well, welcome back to the Foxhole Symphony podcast. I'm Sarge here with my co-host Mark, and we're very, very excited to talk today with a special guest, Brian Schroth. And so I want to just give you a quick introduction to Brian. He has a loving wife, Robin, and he's got 4 adult children, kind of spread out in different parts of the country. And actually, he's calling in today, visiting his son in Daytona Beach, Florida. But Brian's originally from Indiana, now residing in Southwest Florida, doing all kinds of awesome things, which we'll get into. He was a Marine. He's a recently retired police officer. And by the way, Mark is sporting his Marines t-shirt in honor of it, even though Brian can't see it.
He will.
It is awesome. And I took a picture, so we'll post that. He recently retired. So we have it's sort of the retirement episode.
Actually, Brian said he refired.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
When they hear from Brian, they're going to realize he's not retired.
No, not at all. No way.
I don't think there's any golf in his future.
Energizer Bunny. But yes, so officially refired as a police officer. And after serving for 24 years, both in Indiana as well as in Florida, he's so passionate about engaging in and modeling authentic community and authentic relationship with men, as well as just activating men to live their God-given mission. And Mark and I have witnessed that. We've been participants of that and recipients of that through Brian's leadership. He leads in a number of capacities in foxhole-type ministries like Fight Club and serving in some official leadership roles such as as a senior co-leader and Florida State Director for Marked Men for Christ, which you've heard Mark and I talk about. He's the Southwest Florida Area Director for Priority One. And so he's doing a lot. There's no grass growing under his feet. So Brian, welcome to the Foxhole, brother.
Hey guys, thanks for having me, man. I'm just so excited about the chance to connect and just engage and really just challenge other men to live in authentic community.
Love it.
Awesome. I want to just begin for us with some wisdom from Jeremy Camp. It says, the good news for us insecure mask-wearing phonies is that if we were the ones who put the mask on, we can just as easily take it off and begin to walk in the power and the purpose set out before us.
That's awesome.
Thanks, Jeremy.
That is so cool. Yeah, I love that. I love that line. So, yeah, Brian, you've listened to some of our episodes. I know. What are your thoughts so far about the Foxhole Symphony and just some of the episodes and kind of what we're doing here?
Yeah, I love the Bob, and what a great just the thoughts of just men meeting in the basement, Mark's basement, and the band of brothers, man, it's so important. And, so many men in their lives don't have that safe place that they can go to be authentic, to really pour out their hearts, and also to celebrate the victories. I think that's the main thing is, it's bifold. It's just not about doing the hard work to get down there, but it's also celebrating the victories that God's given us. And so that was really rich, as well as, my buddy, Peter Z, got a chance to listen to that on Friday. And I just love that guy. I love his heart. I love his passion. And he touched me in a fresh way. I was out on a run that morning and got to listen to him. And I love him, and I love his heart for men and seeing men grow, even through the struggles and the brokenness that he's incurred in his life. Just how God took that and just made something great out of it, man. It's just a victory. Love it.
Awesome.
I'm so glad to hear that you're enjoying it and have been impacted by it personally as well. And you bring up a great point. I mean, it's interesting. He talks about the positive celebrating, right? The celebrating
Sure.
too. And we haven't really talked a lot about that. Like, as he said that, I was like, ooh, we've talked a lot about digging into the dirt and the grind.
Caves.
Right. Like, but we probably haven't talked enough about the
episode,
the victory. Right. So thank you, Brian, for saying that. We're going to have to focus on that.
Just thinking about what I've seen about Brian online between Fight Club, Priority One, doing my homework on Marked Men. The one time I was with him, I'm thinking like having Brian on is I know this is going to be great. Having Z on was great. If we put the four of us or five of us in a room, we could light a small city,
Yeah,
with the
exactly.
power and like the strength that we have in this.
Absolutely.
Can you imagine what that would be? That would be a hell of an episode.
It'd be cool.
Yeah.
That would be cool. We'll get there.
Or a meeting.
We'll get there.
Right.
Yeah. So Brian, I'm dying to know your perspective on this. I mean, so as you know, the name Foxhole Symphony, we actually have a little disclaimer on the website because Mark and I are not military guys. We're not vets. We have not served in the military. And we were actually early on a little concerned about that because we didn't want it to be, offensive to anyone or right.
Or say to folks, hey, this is for you if you've, served in the military.
Only. Right. So here you are, Brian, and so as a Marine, how does the foxhole analogy that we use resonate with you, whether it be related to the podcast or just as it relates to authentic community?
Yeah, I think with the foxhole, man, I remember, numerous times in my time in the Marine Corps, about building the foxhole. And I think that's different from most guys because they don't really, for me, man, when I hear about the foxhole, I remember building foxholes.
Wow.
And so I remember building those places where, myself and my battle buddies were in this foxhole, but we had to build it together. And it was this deep section where we could just come together. And we knew if we kept our heads down and we were to have each other's backs, it was safe. And, it was a place where we could be together. And, man, it just brings back just so many memories of, just connection with men, as well as knowing that another guy had my back. And so it's just really rich, for me to think about building it. Because I think that so many times guys expect to walk into the foxhole and walk into that safe space. But man, that we have to be leaders of men and build those foxholes so men can feel the freedom to walk into it.
Oh, that's great. That's awesome. And just the physical fact of you having dug one.
Right.
We're talking about it. And that's, by the way, Brian, you're hitting the nail on the head about safety, having each other's backs. These are the exact words that we used in planning this when Sarge and I came up with the name walking down a street in Clinton, New Jersey. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm so glad you mentioned that because I do often, at least for me, I think of the foxhole as just being in it, right? Whether that's Mark's basement or otherwise, but the building of it, I mean, we've talked about it, but I don't know that I've made that connection about actually building the foxhole. I haven't pictured men like Brian digging it and building it. And wow, that there's a lot there.
Sure. And look, go ahead, Brian, you first.
Yeah, and when we talk about that building, it's not when I think about foxholes, I don't think about just one foxhole. Man, I see this perimeter of foxholes that are around this space that's sacred.
Right.
And so when I think about that, I ultimately think about guys like, Steve Spicer from Marked Men. I think about Jim Brown from Fight Club, Dave Dyson from Priority One, Lee Page from Marked Men, all these men that are building these foxholes. And what it does is, if we really put Jesus at the center of those foxholes, I mean, how good is that? How good is that when we come together in community? These foxholes are working together to really, glorify God and really work in the hearts of his men. It's just so rich when I think about the bigger vision instead of just one. When we work together, man, it's just rich.
I love that. I've actually talked to a few people who have built foxholes and some say, well, when you have time to prepare, they can be, architectural marvels, right? With shallow and deep. He goes, other times a foxhole is a depression in the ground. Anything to get you a little lower and safer.
That's right.
And the analogy, I know, Brian, aren't lost on you, right?
No. I remember the little skirmish pit. I mean, you just get a couple down just to get down a little bit. But the difference, I think, in that is typically those are solo. And, your body's still exposed and you still have all these exposures because you aren't in the foxhole with another man.
Yeah.
But when we take when we take the time to build it, man, and you can fit 2, 3, 4 guys in that foxhole, man, that's where the real work happens. That's when you're dug in. That's when you're authentically dug in.
Absolutely.
And that leads us right to, let's stay there, right? With that little foxhole and authentic community, right? Talk about an authentic community. Holy cow. What could be more authentic than in that foxhole? Brian, for you, what comes to mind? We say the words authentic community. What do you think of?
I just think of no masks. I think of no fig leaves, no facades. That's one of the things that we always say on Mark Man. I think that, I'm welcome as I am. Man, when I walk in the door, no matter what I walk in with, that I'm accepted, I'm cared for, I'm loved, I'm celebrated, and that, with men that really desire, the very best from me. They really desire, that I be a solid father, that I be a loving, caring husband, that I'm a good employer. But, first and foremost, man, these are the guys that are going to, lift me to Jesus. They're going to carry me to Jesus. They're going to drag me to Jesus at times. And, man, I just love, authentic Christian community is so rich. And it's filled such a gap in my life. When I was, a new Christian, it was just really tough because I felt like it wasn't there. And then I met a guy, man, and it radically changed my life because he was the first man that really brought me into authentic Christian community.
So let me ask you, as you're saying these things, I'm thinking about you in these foxholes. I'm thinking about you serving in the Marine Corps, serving communities in Indiana, in Florida, in law enforcement, and, all these different roles. And I'm wondering a couple of things. One, in that foxhole in the Marines, or even in the police department, in the locker room, or whatever, did you find, was there authenticity? Was there authentic community there? And maybe there was at times and not at others, but how did each of these roles shape you, as a man, as it relates to authentic relationships?
Yeah. The Marine Corps, and the police department are a lot alike, because there is this machismo, there's this,
right.
There's this level of just intensity that has to happen in order to stay safe.
Got it.
And, with that intensity level comes these, at times, I would go to work, man, and I'd be insecure. I'd be fearful. Different things would happen. And you just have to suck it up and drive on.
Right.
And it became difficult because I feel like there's so many times where, there's just these masks that guys would wear. And it was very difficult to really develop authentic community. Now, it was nothing to go to go out after work and have a couple beers with these guys and do, engage in life. But the difficult part became when marriages are falling apart, when things are happening, in their lives. And it was just very difficult to be able to get down to brass tacks because the majority of them felt like, man, I got this, I can handle this. And, it was pretty rough. But we were pretty fortunate, in Indiana, we had a guy named Jim Bontrager who has a dynamic, ministry that's all related to law enforcement. And man, just the way that he loves them, and he's a Marine also. And so he understands a little bit of the culture, and he's created this sense of, man, it's okay to not be okay. And, my door is open. And man, it's just been a gift to see, you know, what they've done in Northern Indiana, and, you know, the way that they've just empowered men to be men, but also men to be authentic with their wives and their kids. And man, it's just really been rich.
Awesome. I'm thinking just about not knowing your background that well, but it sounds to me like you're a guy who has dropped, we always say pebble in the pond. I think I have to say it every episode once, but you've dropped that pebble or rock so many different places. And each time, right? You've talked about the richness of each of those relationships, what you've learned, and then you take it to the next place and do it. It's exactly what we're called to do. It's exactly. Not only what we need to be doing, it's biblical, right? Mm-hmm. There's work to do there. I'm going to challenge you a little bit because we could talk about authentic community all day, but I'd like you to dig deep on this one and think back prior to what your life was like with authentic Christian community, Brian. Can you help us with just connecting the dots from where you were and your journey to seeking that and finding it?
Sure. Well, I grew up in church, and I did all this stuff growing up. Went to church camp, and then, when I went to college, I was a bedside Baptist. Didn't really engage too much in church, and then went in the Marine Corps. Not a whole lot in the Marine Corps, but when I got out, it was, my wife and I, we had been married about 10 years. And it was just a really rough time because, at work, I was always trying to strive to do the next thing, right? I mean, I was trying to work up the ladder, and I felt like so many times, I was so focused on work and what I was trying to achieve that I really wasn't addressing the big fire at home. Mm. And man, when we finally got to the point that it was not good. Our marriage wasn't good. And when I had men speak into my life for the first time and just engage me authentically and ask hard questions, it radically transformed my life because I was angry, I was controlling, I was not a very nice man. Because it was all about me, right? I mean, Sure. It's just my world. It's my world. You're living in it. And that was kind of how, I lived my life, because it was always about the next thing, whether it be, work, financially, relationally. I like to have everything in control. We get it. It was like I was keeping so many balls in the air, and I just couldn't do it. And I had to relinquish control.
Just very quickly, what was your job? What was your occupation in that time as you were?
Yeah, so I went from, so I had, when I first went on to the police department, I was in the uniform division.
Oh, okay.
And so I was in the uniform. Yeah, so, but I was, fresh out of the Marine Corps, and essentially went, about 8 months later, I was on the PD. And so, and there's a mentality around the PD, right, man? Keep it together, do the right thing. And there's just a ton of daily pressures. And there was things that were happening that I would, they say that the average person sees 3 critical incidents in their life. And the average police officer over 20 years sees approximately 800 critical incidents. And so you would carry the weight Sure. of the critical incidents, even though you don't feel it at the time. But in retrospect, I look back and go, man, I was packing so much stuff, and I would bring that home, and there was nobody that understood, nobody that could process what I was doing, nobody that could feel the feelings that I was feeling. And I just stuffed it. I just continued to stuff.
Totally get that. We talked a few episodes ago. I did just an admission of where my role didn't match the words coming out of my mouth. If that makes sense to you, where Absolutely. Sarge and I are leaders at work, we're leaders of men, we're leaders of teams, and with profit and loss at stake, and we're doing other things where we have leadership roles. And you step into the house, and you need to calm that engine down a little bit. but I came home and kept leading, and you, I mean, as a police officer, I mean, can't imagine what that transition might have been like. And I'm not making excuses for any of us. It's something we needed to learn to do, and we have.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot there. I mean, you talked about, 800 incidents, and we've had conversations with other, law enforcement, yep. And our good friend Kevin, yep. Right, Donaldson, who has the Suffering podcast, and here his whole podcast revolves around one incident that for him was a catalyst for major change,
changed
right?
His life.
And so it sounds like, Brian, that point in your life and some of the marital tension that came along with that was a catalyst, a main turning point. And then you encountered some men in your life. I guess, was that at church?
Yeah, so we went to this little church down the road from our house, and I was approached by a buddy of mine. He's actually a Navy chaplain now, and he came to me and just he was a young dude, and he was like, "Hey, do you want to go to a basketball game?" And that was his way of developing a relationship with me, and it was great. And I remember the four of us went, and just my wife's her main thing was, man, just don't embarrass me. She knew she knew the crazy side of me, because this is BC for me. So
right.
I had a little bit different, outlook on things. For
our friends that don't know what that means, it's before Christ, right? Before Christ.
Yeah.
BC.
Yeah. But it was hilarious, because we went to the ball game, and my wife says, don't embarrass me. So we show up, and the guy says, "What do you want to drink?" And I said, "I'll have a Sprite." And then the next three guys, they ordered beers, and then I said, "Oh, I'll change my order." and I'm like, and at least that way, then I could go back to her and go, "Hey, I was doing what the pastor was doing, so we're all good."
Exactly.
Perfect.
Well, speaking of which, so you use this terminology, this phrase, playing church, right?
Yeah.
So during this time, or even like slightly before that, I mean, what do you mean by that, and what did it look like for you?
Well, I think so many times in my life that when I would walk into church, I remember growing up in a small United Methodist church with 100, 150 people in there. And I remember that you see all these men in ties, and you see all these men that had these perfect lives, and so for a portion of my life, I never felt like I could be that guy. I would attend church because that's what good people did, right? I mean, that was the Midwest norm, it was, and
Sure.
I'm quoting I'm doing the air quotes right now, but it was something where, and I just felt like I was going through the motions, because I hadn't had that authentic encounter with Jesus yet. It was all book knowledge, and it was all, the majority of it was book knowledge, and there was no heart connection, with our Heavenly Father.
Yeah, it's beautifully said. Beautifully said. And so you have, you have so many gifts. I mean, Mark and I, as I said earlier, we've experienced your leadership. We've followed you. We've participated alongside you, and your past experiences as a Marine, as a police officer, and maybe just how God wired you. There's an intensity about you and an intentionality about you. And I think it's probably just who you are, along with all of your experiences. And yet, there's also an intimacy, and, just your heart for people is so huge and so pure. And so this mixture, and, we talk about it at Marked Men, right? Like intimacy, intentionality, and intensity. But when we talk about intensity, like you command a room.
Poster shot.
You command a room. We think of Brian. And so you've got all these foxholes in your life, and that you've built or helped develop and grow, not only for you, but for other men. And you just are continuously giving away. And share with our listeners a little bit about these. We had a podcast. Just had a podcast where we talked about the road to authentic community, and we gave men a number of resources. And I think you've got a lot. And I think that men
that one will be coming out in February.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Exactly. So I think that, tell us a little bit about these foxholes and your involvement with them and how each of them are maybe a little bit different, and, what men could look forward to in them.
Yeah, well, I mean, naturally, I mean, the main catalyst for spiritual growth for me was when I attended my Marked Men weekend in May of 2006 in Bailey, Colorado.
Okay.
And, for me, I was, at the time we're talking, this is like right after the basketball game of the pastor. It's within a year of that. Robin and I were not in a good place. And so when I ended up going to Marked Men, I was the first time that I really, felt the Holy Spirit, where I had an authentic connection with our Father on the side of a mountain in Bailey, Colorado. And, man, it was just so rich. And, I just needed more of that. And so we ended up coming back and developing, the phase 2, which is the follow-up, and then the phase 3 in our area, long-term accountability. And, I just love my phase 3, and I love being able to do life with men, challenging them. It sounds a lot like the Bob, where we're coming in, spending time and just really just loving on each other.
Yeah.
But also getting to the root of the matter. What's keeping me from being the man that God intended me to be? And so that's, Marked Men has been great. And, we ended up coming down and doing the same thing in Florida. And so right now in Florida, my phase 3 is it's a group of holy men, that
awesome.
Are really, really rich. The second one, of course, is Fight Club. Fight Club was, developed in Northern Indiana, and it's, we cover 5 areas. It's emotional, relational, spiritual, intellectual, and physical. And we try to really challenge men to be the best version of themselves in all 5 areas.
Wow.
And, the one unique part about that is the physical component, because there's so many times where, men they don't have the physical capability to really serve in a great way. And it's because they've been sitting on the couch for too long. They've been eating too many Cheetos and not doing enough burpees. And so it makes this, it limits their capacity.
Did you hear my word for the year was Entenmann's chocolate donuts?
Yeah, exactly. When you said Cheetos, Mark was pointing at me. You couldn't see that. But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Brian, but that was too easy.
You're okay.
That was a softball.
You're all good. But I look at it from the perspective that, hard men do hard things. And, we need to challenge ourselves, all across the board. And so, being in a squad of men and, between 8 and 12 men, and they're just being, this authentic community where guys are sharing about, man, my struggle, maybe it's booze, maybe it's pornography, maybe it's, masturbation, whatever it is, whatever these guys are having problems with, we have the ability to come in and, confession and pray and be healed from that. James 5:16, it's a perfect example of it. Same as in Marked Men. And then of course with, Priority 1, the new gig, now, it's just one-on-one. A lot of it's one-on-one discipleship, with men, just taking guys that are, for lack of better terms, baby Christians, and walking alongside them and teaching them and developing spiritual disciplines in their life so they can, and multiplying that and allowing a man to come in, experience Jesus in a fresh way, serve his family, serve his community, serve his wife, and then, multiply that. And the Small Circle app that we use is spectacular.
So what is that? What is that?
So Small Circle is an app that was developed by a pastor out of Sarasota at 360 Church. His name's Steve McCoy.
Okay.
and they have three areas. One is they have next, mix, and exchange, and there are three separate sections. And basically, you walk with a man at a table for two for 1 year, maybe a little more, depending upon the calendar. But it's just authentic and sitting down. You do a lot of scripture. There's some scripture memorization in there. There's also walking through the word. What does this mean? What does this scripture passage actually mean?
Okay.
And then praying with these guys, accountability. Talking through marital woes. Allowing them to just talk.
Got it.
And it's really rich.
So with the Circle app is sort of a resource for guys that want to do that. Is that accurate?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It's actually for it's for males and females.
Okay, cool.
I just use it for my side, for men.
Yep.
But it's, I think the gift of this resource is that it's, 80% of disciplees become disciplers because they've been so radically transformed by it.
Yeah.
They want to be a part of it.
Sure.
And so, Steve's just done a great job of just discipleship, developing a discipleship app where you don't have to figure out what you're going to do. It's there.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And it's super rich.
Just listening to you, Brian, made me think of an article I read probably about 10 days, 2 weeks ago, but you just talked about serving family, serving community, serving your wife. There's a gentleman who's beloved in your neighborhood. His name is Tony Dungy, right? And he gives out those shirts. It says 3 F's, and it's faith, family, football. And he does, and it's in that order, period.
Well, that reminds me, there's another resource that Brian, I think, talked about on our initial call a couple of weeks ago, and it's 3 F's, or it's F3, right? Is it F3?
Yeah, it's correct.
Which stands for faith, fellowship, and fitness?
Yeah, it's faith, fellowship, and fitness. Yep.
Got it. Okay. So another cool resource. Actually, after we talked about it, I hopped online just to see if there was something around here, and there was like one, but there's, in I think maybe a couple in New Jersey, but not right near us, but looked like another just great resource that, I'm not sure how similar that may or may not be to Fight Club. I know of Fight Club just through you, and again, maybe because it's you, but I think of it as a high intensity, platform and resource, which is cool.
Yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, F3 is I'm in the beginning stages of exploring it, and one of the things that I really love about it is they definitely do a great job on the fitness aspect. They do down in our area, they call them beat downs. So they do
perfect.
It's a pretty high intensity workout that they do, but the fellowship is really good. And go ahead.
I was gonna say, is that like the first step? Like, can I sign up for the beatdown, please? Where's that? When does that take place?
Yeah.
Right. Boot camp. Here we go.
Like a boot camp. It is.
There you
it's
go.
Kind of like a boot camp style workout. It's really good.
Do it.
But just continuing to develop the fellowship there has been really rich. So I've enjoyed it so far.
So let me just recap. So for some of the resources and just our listeners, so Mark Men is an international organization, international ministry based out of Colorado. Mark and I talk about it all the time. Steve Spicer, one of the co-founders, is going to be on with us, but you could go to markmenforchrist.org to check that out. And there's weekends all over the country all year long. And it is for the three of us, as well as Z mentioned it and talked about it. And most of the men in our foxholes, it's been really the most transformative experience in our lives. Beyond that, Brian, Fight Club, is that like a national thing, or is it just kind of like this hyper local thing in Indiana and Florida?
No, it's all over the country also.
Okay.
And it's just continuing to expand as people hear about it.
Yep.
It's mostly word of mouth.
Okay.
Guys' lives are radically transformed by it. And so they want to start it in their area. And so they actually they'll send a kit, a Fight Club starter kit, and it comes in this cool ammo can.
That's awesome.
It has a ton, and it has a ton of resources in there. And Jim Brown, the founder of Fight Club, man, he's just, man, the guy just radically loves Jesus, and just constantly thinking outside the box about how to challenge his men.
Yeah.
And
Can you just picture getting something in the mail? It's a 105 millimeter howitzer shell full of stuff.
Yeah.
And your wife's like, honey, this is for you.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is, so LC ordered one and never did anything with it. He just wanted the kit because it looked cool. So Brian told him all about it. LC ordered it. He's like, dude, look at this. This is cool. I'm like, yeah, it is. Oh man. He's like, you want to go for
forget about
it. Yeah, forget about it. It's right. Every day, forget about it. Oh man. So that's Fight Club, and I know F3 is online. People could check that out. How about Priority One? You mentioned that's mostly one-on-one, but I know they have weekends as well. And I know it's all over the East Coast because of you and Steve Fessler and Lee Page and Wally Wilds, and we happen to know all these guys and love them so much. But that is nationwide as well.
Yeah, I mean, primarily it's it's up and down the East Coast right now.
Okay.
Wally's the northern bookend, and I'm the southern bookend right now.
Yep.
Up and down the coast. But yeah, we do weekends. In fact, we have one coming up in Rockbridge, Virginia, that's going to be coming in. We also do one called Lake Champion. It's up in New York.
Yep.
But a lot of it,
saw that.
The good part about Priority One is they take guys that are doing full-time ministry, and they allow them to form that area in relation to what their gifting is. And the sole purpose of Priority One is to introduce Christ into the lives of men. And it doesn't matter what it looks like. The end result, man, is what we're looking for. What does it look like to have a man that authentically chases after Jesus every day of his life?
Mm-hmm.
And how we get there is different. Mm-hmm. Lee and I are a lot alike in some ways, but there are ministries that he's involved in his area that are far different from what I'm involved in.
Mm-hmm.
Got it.
That's cool.
So, interesting. You say that it's that journey is so different for every man, right? If one of the two involved in that relationship has a heart for Christ and has been on this journey, which can be an uphill climb many times. It's just interesting. I'd love to hear feedback about how each approached that relationship and then how they've grown through that. And since I can't do that now, let me ask you, Brian, if there was a 2-word theme or title for your journey with God today, what would it be and why? You can use 3 words if you want.
Yeah. 2 words is radically chasing. Man, I just every day, man, I want to wake up and I just want to radically chase after Jesus. And man, and I just want to walk with him. And he's my father, man, and I just that intimate connection with my dad is just so good. And I just want to be the best gatherer and shepherd of men that he's called me to be. And I remember this morning I was sitting in church, man, the pastor was talking about God's grace and how good it is, man. And I just started to tear up because, it is so good. And I think there's so many times where, I get wrapped up in the sin or the things that aren't going well in my life. But man, when I really look at those victories that God's brought me to it, and then he's brought me through it, man, it's so rich. And man, just the grace that he pours on me, so good. So yeah, radically chasing would be my 2 words of the day.
Cool. I love that. And thank you for modeling that for men. I mean, the you doing it and having the discipline and focus to know that that's where you are in your journey with Christ today, but also you don't care who sees you, what it looks like. You're just putting it out there, and modeling that is probably the most important thing you can do in this world that needs authentic community so badly.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Thanks for that.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you. We've watched that. We've seen it and in action, and we're continuing to cheer you on. So let me ask you this before we kind of get ready to close. Just given your vast experience in all of these foxholes, building stronger men. What message do you have for men in general, and particularly for those that are maybe like on the fence, or not sure about authentic community?
I would say, step out of the boat. So much of my life I lived with one foot in the boat and one foot out. And what I found is when I was willing to take a risk and step out of the boat and keep my eyes on Jesus, man, it changed my life. It changed the trajectory of everything around me. I became I love my wife so much. She's just so good. And God made her just for me. And I just walk into that relationship with just a freshness, with my kids, the way that, God's wired them, man. And it's just this loving connection with them. And it's all because I took the chance and stepped out of the boat and really became authentic. And also just really didn't care what the world said. I just kind of said, man, this is where Jesus is calling me, and I need to step in and I need to do my thing.
Yep.
And with him, right? It's not about me, but it's all about how I walk with him.
Yeah.
And I found that when I walk with him in obedience, my life becomes so much easier in a lot of ways, because I don't have to worry. You don't have to worry about where my finances are coming from. I don't have to worry about these things in my life that I used to hold a grip on. And I can just trust and have faith and enjoy the victories.
Yeah.
Enjoy the goodness. One of my mantras this year is, just be. And there's so many times where my life gets so busy and I don't just enjoy. I don't bask in the goodness of who God is. And so this year for me is just about just being in the presence of God, just being heavily connected, and just being an authentic community with people. And then when that happens, man, it's so rich. So I keep saying rich, but it is so rich.
It's okay.
It's so good.
I love it.
It's so good. And I don't even know how to explain it for people that have never been there. But man, it is so good.
Yeah.
Brian, the tone of your voice, the passion that you have is very, very infectious and magnetic. So it's all good. But you're doing so much today. I can't help but wonder what's on your dream list. What's beginning to stir in you, but not fully awakened right now? What is there something there?
My heart is really towards, we really talk about revival and what that looks like. And, my heart is for each man, in my community, and to just deeply connect with their Father, and it doesn't come down to a church. It just comes down to every man having accountability and authentic community in their life. And I don't know what that looks like yet. I don't know how to get there, but I know that's like, it constantly stirs in my heart about, I see men that are broken and sitting on the sidelines. And man, it just breaks my heart. I've ran into him this weekend. And man, that's a tough question, but man, I just really want to see men chase after Jesus.
Awesome.
That's it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for your part in that, brother, and all that you've done. And you've impacted our lives individually, and you've impacted so many, more than I'm sure you even know of and realize. But keep getting after it, bro. We just want to encourage you and cheer you on. We're for you and thankful for you. And, the sense of urgency that you put out there, right? To radically chase, to step out of the boat. It's time. Get after it. Get in the game. And I love it. It catalyzes me. It inspires me. And so I appreciate that about you. And I pray that it does the same for others. But thank you for spending your time with us today, away from your family. And we really do wish you the best and pray for the best. And we can't wait to see what God does with you next. So thank you, brother.
Love you, brother.
Thanks, guys. Love you too, man. I'm excited about what God's going to do through us with Jesus, as well as, through Foxhole Symphony, man. I'm love it. And I'm excited about listening to all the episodes that are going to be coming up.
Thanks, bro.
Awesome.
Tell your friends.
Yes. Great stuff. Well, thanks again, Brian. And thank you for listening, folks. And again, as always, if we can be a resource to you, reach out to us. We're going to post some of these resources we talked about on our page, on our social media. So check those out, click around. And as always, you can reach out to us as well. Thanks for listening.
Today, we spoke with Brian Schroth, a Marine, police officer, father, husband, and leader of men. We heard about Brian's life BC, before Christ, when he was simply playing church, as well as his incredible journey toward authentic community. He has a dream of all men being connected authentically, so that they can live their best life. Lastly, Brian challenged us to get out of the boat and join him as he radically chases Jesus.
If you enjoyed today's episode, please share it and invite others to the Foxhole. You can find us wherever you download your favorite podcast. Be sure to subscribe so you know when new episodes drop, and please rate us and comment there too, as it'll help us get found by others who could benefit. Find, follow, and like us on your go-to social media networks by searching Foxhole Symphony, or visit foxholesymphony.com to make it super easy to find us. Drop us a line with feedback, questions, topic requests, who knows? Maybe you'll be a guest on a future episode. In the meantime, prepare to move, embrace discomfort, and just be you.